Houston, we see you on the stereo.
Conspiracy, lies, truth, helping you understand the lies of the world and see the truth of the Bible. Welcome to Celebrate Truth with your hosts, Robbie Davidson and Pastor Nate.
Wow, that one came up real fast tonight. So this is Celebrate Truth Radio. I'm your host, Robbie Davidson. Joining with me, as always, my awesome special co-host, Pastor Nate Wolfe. And this one is a special one, actually, because there's been a lot of events that have been taking place in, the last end of 2019. And we've got Pastor Nate because we really do need help. This is a special live stream to really see if we can help the Wolfe family. They've come under some extreme hardship. I think that we'll use this broadcast for people that aren't aware to hear Nate's story, but as well, just the road and the journey afterwards, and even just into the recent events that have occurred. And we can maybe get into that. So, Nate, if you want to kind of just maybe just introduce yourself and maybe start getting into the story for everyone, just so everyone has a good idea.
Yeah, Robbie, I really appreciate you doing this for me and for my family. And, trust me, if we weren't really in need of the help, I wouldn't have even said anything about it. So that should give you an indication, that this is a legitimate need here. And I'll share more about the need. But first of all, my name is Nate Wolfe. I had been in full-time congregational ministry in some form, either volunteer or full-time work for almost 27 years. And the last 15, 16 years I had spent in full-time preaching at two different congregations. And I've lived and ministered and preached in 4 or 5 different states. I grew up in Anchorage, Alaska. I wasn't born in Alaska. I was born in Wisconsin in 1973. And when I was about 3 years old, my dad took a job in Anchorage, Alaska. And so my dad, mom, myself, and my sister, who was still in my mom's tummy, she was not due for about 2 more months. But we went up to Alaska. So I grew up in Anchorage and met my wife in high school. We got married right out of high school. And then we got a wild hair and went off to a private Christian college in Arkansas, of all places. So we moved from Alaska to Arkansas only 2 months after after she graduated high school, and only about, less than 4 weeks. It was 3 weeks from when we got married that we moved to Arkansas. So it was quite a change and culture shock and all of that. But I got my degree in ministry. I got a Bachelor of Arts in Bible, and I had some training in youth ministry, a little bit in psychology. And we moved back to Alaska for a bit. And for a period of time after college, I was doing volunteer work with churches in Anchorage. And the funny thing is, Robbie, is that I wanted to have compensation so I could start to pay my student loans off and, provide for my family. And at the time, no churches were hiring. So they loved the volunteer work, but they didn't want to pay me. And I thought, well, my student loans are due. This was just before we started having kids. And so we decided, I've got to have some kind of income. So I wanted to work with children and families in some capacity. So I went into the secular workforce in Anchorage. I did some supervision for a while in a cottage setting of severely emotionally disturbed children. And that was a challenge, but it was a learning experience. And then I ended up doing some case management for folks that were receiving social services. I did social work. I was a case manager for the state of Alaska for social work for a couple years. Did investigations with the state for child abuse and neglect. And then I got a super wild hair and decided to join the police force. And I wanted to become a detective, but you had to be on patrol for 3 years before you could do that. So I applied to the police academy, and after months and several tests and different things jumping through their hoops, I was blessed to make it into the 2000 Anchorage, Alaska Police Academy. And that was a 6-month intensive academy, and I managed to make it through there. I did several months field training and on patrol, and then I realized that I needed to be in ministry. And what was I doing, And once I realized, I was kind of blaming God, to be honest with you, Robbie, for about 5 years. I'm like, well, gee, Father, why'd you have me get this Bible education and all this stuff? And then, then I have to go into the secular field because churches weren't hiring me. But what I realized, Robbie, I went through a period of a few weeks right before I quit the police where I was my spirit was troubled, man. And my officer safety was off because my focus was off, and I didn't know what it was. But I finally figured out that I just really felt like I needed to be in ministry. And so when that happened, I ended up quitting the police. And I just knew that my problem was that I was too narrow-minded. I was basically telling God, hey, why don't you give me the ministry in my hometown? Why don't you let me pick the church I want to be with? Why don't you just let me pave the road here? And once I realized that the problem wasn't God, it was me. And so we prayed. I quit the police because I was 100% certain that's what I needed to do. Within a week, Robbie, I had a phone interview with a church in Midland, Michigan. And within a month, I was hired as a youth and family minister. So we packed up our little moving van in Alaska and drove to Michigan. And after a couple of years of doing youth ministry in Michigan, I went into full-time preaching. And then I did that for the last 16 years. And as you know, the last couple of years got real interesting.
Mm-hmm. You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay.
So I transitioned from youth ministry to full-time preaching. I had an opportunity to do some preaching for the main minister there, and I got the bug to do that, and so I transitioned into full-time preaching ministry, and we moved to Idaho. We moved to the Snake River Valley on the Idaho-Washington border, and was preaching there full-time for 8 years. And then we moved in 2011 to the Toledo, Ohio area. And I did full-time preaching there for 7.5 years. And I know a lot of the listeners know the story. Some don't. But I had a truth awakening that occurred in spring of 2017. If you like, I can share a little bit about that. And,
yeah, absolutely.
And that's really what's leading to this, fundraiser tonight, asking folks to partner with my ministry. And I can even include my wife in that and even my family, because they've been so supportive this entire year. And I'll say more about my wife here in a bit. But, I jokingly say you could blame Robbie Davidson. And in 2017, I was surfing the web, and I was checking out some videos on YouTube on the flood. And up pops this interesting thumbnail in this video, this documentary film called The Global Lie. And I'm like, what is that, man? That sounds like serious. Like, I need to check that out. So I watched your doc, and I was blown away, especially with the scriptures that were listed. And so I went down this scripture rabbit hole and some other videos connected. And then there was this thing called Flat Earth. And I'm just like, whoa, I got to do some thinking about this. So I ended up, doing a lot of study into that and became very convinced about the true nature of the creation. Yes, from science, but mainly from the Bible and what I was seeing to be true in the scriptures, especially Genesis chapter 1. It blew me away when I went back into Genesis chapter 1 and really just listened to what did the Father say he did, and what day did he do that on, and what was the purpose of the things that he created. And so with that, I shared with my wife, and it wasn't very long before she came on board. She was very fast. And basically what happened was we found out months later. This was probably, I'm guessing it was either late March or early April of 2017 when I saw your documentary. And then about, it was almost, it was a little over a year, we ended up seeing this advertisement for this truth conference called Take on the World 18. And it happened to be only about an hour away from where we live. So we were like, wow, we got to go to this thing. We'd never been to a truth conference. And we went out there, and as you know, we were just blown away by what we saw and the content and the people, and it just, to see so many speakers like yourself and Rob Skiba and others that we had been listening to on YouTube for over a year, to see you guys in person, to get to meet you, to see that, hey, they're just normal guys, and so we got to the end of that Take on the World 18, and we realized that, wow, this is important, and we both felt like we needed to do something with the truth that we had learned, and we didn't know what, that meant for us, but we knew it was something important because we felt the Spirit, giving us that tug, and so we prayed about it. What should we do, Father? We don't understand, what this means, but we definitely know that you're telling us to do something. We just don't have details. So please help us. And it was about 3 weeks later where I got a text message from the elders at the church that I had ministered at for almost 7.5 years. And the text message it was an hour before I was supposed to be at the office. It was a Friday morning, September 14th, 2018. And, a little over, it was like a year and 3 or 4, year and 4 or 5 months since we had first gotten flat smacked. And it said that you will be meeting with all the elders in an hour. And wow, I was blown away, and I didn't know exactly what was happening, but I ended up going in to meet with these elders after I had some banter back on the phone with them, trying to find out what this was about. And basically I pressed one of the elders, and he finally told me, he said, yeah, you're being ambushed, man. And I was just like, I couldn't believe what I'm hearing. Like, the shepherds of the church are telling me that I'm walking into an ambush. And so I went to the meeting, and just within a few more minutes, I was fired. They slid a piece of paper over across the table to me, and they said, hey, we understand that you went to this conference on these dates, and they didn't say very much, Robbie. To be honest with you, I'm shocked at how little information they gave me. They said this. First of all, they said, we can't have a minister with that kind of association. And I knew what they meant by that. But I didn't know anybody there, and nobody knew us. My wife and I went. We didn't have any connections with anybody other than certain beliefs. And we were convinced of certain things, but in many ways, we were still just in the investigative, phase, trying to take all of this in. And so then they followed that up. That was the one punch. And then the two punch was they said, we can't have you in our pulpit Sunday. And I was just blown away, like, really? Are you serious? And within a matter of 10 minutes or less, I was actually in my office packing up my books. And my wife and I spent almost 2 hours shuttling books back and forth from my office to our garage in our home. And so, I was fired for simply going to a conference. And it wasn't an inappropriate conference. It wasn't like, you could think of any kind of conference you can go to. We didn't go to anything inappropriate, right? And we broke no laws, and we were on my vacation, which was approved. We spent our own dime, so we didn't use any of the church's money. We used our own vehicles. Everything was paid for by ourselves. And so it was just shocking. And it seems so bizarre, right? I mean, I felt, Robbie, like I was in this, Twilight Zone or whatever. But anyway, so we ended up, reaching out to Chris Bailey and others, and Rick Hummer, and then of course that ended up with a contact to you and Rob Skiba and others, and we just realized that, wow, this is a big thing that's happening, because I was wanting to speak out about what happened to me, and I was wanting to speak out about truth. And so I lost my job, and I was making a good salary after 20-something years. I had recently completed my Master of Ministry, and so I had additional education as well. And, I lost a $60,000 a year salary in an instant, and that took half of my family's income. And so, as you know, for this last year, basically have begun a new ministry, and teaching and traveling and, sharing, doing meetups with people, praying for people, studying with people, just whatever I could do to help minister to them. And so the Father has really blessed us in that. And we have had some consistent support throughout this year. But the recent need, obviously, with some support, that's very helpful, but I have nowhere near replaced the income that was lost. And so as you could imagine, with a family of 6, 4 kids, that's a tough pill to swallow. But, we've just tried to trust in the Father. And recently, just a few days ago, we had a huge unexpected bill, and it just came down to we had to pay it. And if we didn't, things were going to get a lot worse. And so we ended up using all of our funds, including my wife's paycheck that came in Thursday. And we had to pay this bill. When we paid it, we had $27 left. And we were just kind of devastated, to be honest with you, because we needed that money to pay our essential bills. And we had to do it. And so we just Friday, as you saw, I posted on Facebook, and then I also reached out to several of my friends, including yourself. And I said, hey guys, we're just really feeling stuck here, and we have nowhere else to turn. We need your support. And so some support has already come in, and I am really just thankful to report that within the last 2 days, we got enough support. In 2 days, mind you, 36 hours, we received enough support between about 8 or 9 people that we have recovered the $1,900, that unexpected bill that was just a huge bomb, to our finances.
No doubt.
And so I appreciate the fact that you're, doing this for us and this fundraiser. And so, I'd like to encourage folks to just prayerfully consider if you would partner with us in ministry. And certainly, obviously my family has needs. But at the same time, I use funds for ministry as well. I use funds to travel and share truth. And, that's not free. I don't get free gas. I don't, most of the time I don't have free housing. And so it's a blessing that the Father has shown us, hey, I got your back. Yeah, that was a rough week, but it's going to be okay. And
that's the thing, right? A reason also I wanted to do the show is it's still going to be rough for the next couple of months, right?
Yes.
And there's no need stressing, in November and December. And there might be things in the horizon in 2020, but really the biggest reason, not just because you're my co-host, but from the very beginning, it was a huge deal for you to come out the way you did. I had mentioned this on many shows that I had pastors reaching out to me anonymously and saying that they had been fired or that they were asked to step down and they wanted to go quietly. And I always knew that, the first person that kind of came forward and that wouldn't back down, that would actually go forward and actually keep proclaiming the truth, And that's something that, you've done. You've done this in many ways now as your journey continues. And that's the thing. It takes, it's not just guts and it's not just you being brave. It's you really answering the Father's call.
Yep.
And even though you're going to go through, trials and tribulation, you really have honored that from day one. You've been faithful. Not only that, you've been faithful to pray for pretty much the entire community. Every day you pick new people to pray for, that's a continual basis. So, it's not just you with the words, you live out, basically who you are. And it's true. And I think it's really important, especially with your family. And what a blessed environment to have your entire family come along the journey with you. All your kids, your wife, and now you and your wife are doing ministry together. You're on your 5th or 6th episode of your show, and you're talking about marriage, which is a beautiful thing, because again, marriage is so sacred and there's so many problems that are going on. And it's really nice to have a good voice, out there in social media. So really, there's a lot of reasons why. I think this is the only time I've ever done a fundraiser. I've done an entire show dedicated to really, if you have any way that you can help Nate and his family, please do it. Anything helps, right? The PayPal
Absolutely.
link is in the description. I have it in the chat room. You'll have this information, after this live stream is done. But if any way you can help out, there's a lot of things that are going on. I do believe that the Father does have some big things in store, for you. And there probably will be kind of a rough patch. You're really going to he's going to test your faith and, you're going to kind of, sweat buckets sometimes. But really, I think it's been an amazing journey to watch of just how everything has transpired, not just with your family, but with your ministry and everything. And I know how it can feel if all of a sudden things are rough. And again, it was already tight, just with your mortgage and all that. And then all of a sudden you get slapped with this, this thing that you don't think is coming. And, it's going to get pretty severe if you don't. And now you're behind even more. And I just think that the community values you in a lot of ways. And if they hear this voice, they hear this show, I think they're going to respond. I really do. Because, again, you've brought so much good to not just the flat earth community, the entire, Christian community. You've just had this great, demeanor. I mean, we've talked about this before, Nate, right? We've talked about this before when I decided to bring you on, for the very beginning, making you my co-host of the show. But I thought that there were a lot of things that you and I had in common, but also the way we kind of view things, right? We're not like highly emotional. We're pretty constant, these type of things. And I think that you bring a lot of value. And I think it's just the start of what, the Father has prepared for you.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen him opening doors. And like you said, my wife and kids have been so supportive of me this year. And even my entire family has been on a couple of different shows. My wife and I have been on several shows together recently. But yeah, the thing is we started, my wife and I, we'd been talking about this for years, Robbie, doing something together because my wife has a master's in social work. She has her private practice counseling, licensure. She's not doing that right now. She's working for the county, but she has a lot of experience. And she says, hey, with your ministry experience and, my social work experience, we have a lot to offer. Those are complementary of each other. Let's share some of our experience. And after 27 years of marriage and 4 children, we have 2 young adults and 2 teenagers left. We're not that young family with little kids anymore. We're that middle-aged, couple with young adults coming up the pike here. But we decided, let's join forces together. And it just seemed like so. I don't know. It was like a no-brainer. Like, why didn't we do this before? Why did we wait a year? I mean, we have the Fired for Truth platform. We have a good subscriber base. Let's pool our resources together here and share some things that are important regarding marriage, parenting, and other important life things. And so we started a weekly segment. We do an upload of a recorded video on a topic each week. We upload it Tuesday to Fired for Truth YouTube channel, and it's called Life Matters with Nate and Jen. And we've covered a lot of subjects. We've covered communication in marriage, boundaries in marriage. We've covered what does the whole leave and cleave in Genesis, in the King James, what's the leave and cleave all about, And we just uploaded on Tuesday the first of 2 parts of a topic that is, relating to for better or for worse, the typical marriage vows that we make. So we uploaded for better just a few days ago on Tuesday, and we're working on for worse now, and we'll be uploading that Tuesday night around 7 p.m. Eastern. So I'm excited that my wife is actually, she's active. She's not just supportive, but she is completely active now. And we're doing this together. So she is part of my ministry. It's becoming our ministry in at least several ways. And so I'm excited about that. We've had such great feedback regarding that series. I know we'll continue to do that indefinitely. I mean, I know at some point we'll have to take some breaks and, we may run out of some topics for a little bit, but I imagine for the next several weeks,
in marriage, there's lots of topics.
Yeah, there's so many topics.
I don't think you'll run out.
And for the single people out there, we started with marriage topics. We're still going to do that the next few weeks. Then we're going to switch over to parenting. Probably do that for several weeks. And then we promise that we will do some topics that aren't necessarily, for married people. I mean, there's important things that single, people need encouragement in, and just spiritual walk in general. It doesn't have to be marriage and kids. We might just talk about some things that are just spiritual walk, period.
It seems right, though, you being led to that because, even just getting to meet your entire family, I can say, with all authority that your family is great. I mean, they're wonderful in the sense that they're just all there, biblically speaking. And again, they're just following you, with this entire journey. I'm still amazed that all your children, especially when you bring up a topic like, hey, kids, think the earth is flat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they don't just like wig out and think dad's gone crazy, right? I mean, not only that, going through, being fired, and that's traumatizing enough, for a family, especially when you've got all your friends. And I would imagine that you're pretty, you were involved quite a bit, with the church, obviously, as pastor and the pastor's wife, and then the PKs, right? The children, that's going to be hard, on anyone. But then also going through this journey, and then them being able to see you, even at Take on the World. That was really exciting, for them to be there and just to see everything that's going on. And in the midst of the whole thing, when you get to a point where it's getting stressful, and the money, and obviously, we've talked about this before, because this is nothing new. And, God has provided all the way through. But when you're left to a point where all of a sudden it's getting to a situation critical, and, you've invested so much, and again, you're not, I'm the one that's initiating the show. You never asked me. I said, I want to do it. And that's the thing. It takes you a lot to even, ask. Right. And, that's the thing. And I've seen you, from day one, where I know kind of, your financial situation is not that great. And yet you donate to multiple people. And I'm like, what is he doing? Right. Yeah. I'm like, wow. Like, he's wondering where, money's going to come from. And yet he's donating to this ministry, and he's donating to this YouTuber, and he's, Patreon of, you're a Patreon of me, for goodness sakes. I remember even, when I did have my monetization, when I had the memberships, you had signed up for a membership, know? And I was just like, wow, so, you really have a heart, you live it out. And I just think it's time for the community. And speaking of which, people in the chat room right now, there's a few people that have actually echoed that statement, saying you definitely need to start a GoFundMe. So, I think that's important, because again, it's shareable, and, you can kind of articulate it. You can say that it was birthed from this show. I think it's a good way, so you don't feel like, oh, I'm starting this GoFundMe. It's kind of like, this was what the community wanted, because again, I'm getting people in the chat room, and I'm also getting messages right now saying you definitely need to start a GoFundMe. Get Nate to start a GoFundMe.
I do have an account. We did have a successful GoFundMe over a year ago, right after I got fired, which was hugely helpful. We wouldn't have made it without that. So I should still have an active account, and I will definitely do that within the next day or so. I'll get that up as soon as I can. And I appreciate folks, if that's how folks want to help, then yes, I'll do that. I hadn't originally intended to do that, as you know, because I'm not trying to get rich. I just want to pay my bills, so that my family.
I think people realize that, right?
My family doesn't suffer, and so I can just minister and seek. We've tried to seek the kingdom first. This whole year, that's what we've been about, and that's why we have donated. Because it is a ministry, that I'm involved in. And so we take a portion of what's donated to us, and we do good works with that, in the Messiah's name, and we're commanded to do so. And we also know that, the things that we do are a blessing to others. One cool thing that we support, ROBBIE, is a young child in Haiti, and who has needs, and educational needs, clothing, food, stuff like that. My oldest son, as you know, went to Haiti on a missions trip back in February of this year, and he was there for about a week, and he got to know some kids at some of the different, they have it's kind of like an orphanage and kind of like a day camp. They have several of them, and he transported between 2 or 3 of them, spent a few days here and a few days there. And he ministered down there, and this is the cool thing. We help each month, our family does, with this one child. His name is Edison. It's a cool name. And he's 9 years old, and it's through Hope for Haiti's Children. And this is the providence of the Father. Let me tell you what happened. So we didn't know which kid we were going to support. We just said we wanted a young kid, and we get this deal in the mail that tells us, Edison, male, 9 years old. Here, he's not an orphan. He does have a family, but they're very poor. And so we support him each month, which helps him with clothing and food and books for school and that kind of thing. My son, my oldest son who went to Haiti, he says, Dad, I know that kid. I'm like, what? He says, yeah, I met that kid in Haiti when I played soccer with that kid. We're just like, it's so cool. That's the Father, right? That's a God thing. And
absolutely,
it's great because, so many charities, you just don't know, some are legit, but there's a lot of bogus ones out there. And so we were thrilled. We're like, seriously, you know this kid? He's like, yeah. He showed us a picture of him playing soccer with this kid. A bunch of kids around them stopped for a selfie, and this kid was in it. So, we try to do good works in his name, and we just haven't, really stressed as much as we could have this year. We've tried to have faith. Mm-hmm. And I always say that, the Father can do anything, but here's what I know. He most often will work through giving hearts. He works through his people. He's not going to just drop a suitcase, full of money to help you pay your bills, but he is going to motivate people's hearts who just decide, I'm going to help out. And so that's what we're asking. Obviously, PayPal is very fast, and that is going to be so helpful to us. The other option, Robbie, is, that I do have Patreon. And I would really encourage folks, if they can do any kind of monthly support to partner with my ministry, even if it's a smaller amount, if you can do that consistently as you're able, please do. Because, with PayPal, it's wonderful. It's very hard to budget, right? Because it's usually different amounts and random times. But with Patreon, for the most part, you can budget, because after a few months, you see generally how much you have every month. And so you can kind of budget off of that. So if anyone is able to do Patreon, just look me up, Nate Wolfe on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Nate Wolfe. And then I do have a snail mail option, because how the truthers are. There's a good portion of the truthers that say, hey, I'm not doing debit, I'm not doing PayPal, I'm not doing whatever. So I have a PO box, and I think you've already got that in some of your links, but there's a PO box for those that just want to mail a money order or a check, or one time or once in a while or whatever. But that is PO Box 167-256 in Oregon, Ohio, 43616. And so I tell you what, I love me some snail mail. Yeah, Roddy, I see Roddy K in the chat. I love me some snail mail. You know why? Because I get stuff in there that it doesn't have anything to do with money. It might just be somebody sends a card of encouragement. Around the holidays, a couple of people sent us a picture of their family and with an encouraging word. And so it's so exciting. And I tell you, I do check my mailbox almost every single day, because we try to live by that, daily bread principle, have faith in him. And, and also I love the encouragement too. So when somebody sends me a note or, just something to say hello, that's exciting. And it's way better than, getting post office junk mail. Let me tell you.
Yeah, that's, that can be, definitely discouraging for sure, but it's great that you've got all these ways that people can help. Obviously, your Patreon, PayPal, snail mail, and honestly, I don't want to discount this, but again, I'm sure you've said this many, many times before, but prayers are greatly encouraged. Again, and that's the thing. So don't feel like, if you just can't do it, you're not doing anything. You can. I mean, really sincerely pray that, for the Father's will, and that, they're provided for and stuff when it comes to this. Again, Nate and his wife have is it 5 children?
We have four. We have 4 kids.
That's
and
right, 4.
We have, we have 3 boys that are 21, 19, and 17. 2 are young adults. One doesn't live in our home right now, but he's here a lot, and we're still helping him.
We got Holden. Go through them. Go through all the H's.
Yeah. So we got Harrison, Holden, Hudson, and then we have our daughter Hannah, and she's our baby, but she's almost 16. So, the 2 younger kids are, my youngest boy Hudson is a senior in high school, so he's graduating in June, and then my daughter Hannah is a junior, so she'll graduate a year from June. Yeah. So it's it is a busy life, and the toughest thing is just you're trying to pay your bills, and you're trying to have finances so you can travel and share truth, but you also your kids have needs, and
sure,
you definitely want to make sure that they have the basic things that they need. And it's been a humbling experience. I mean, I'm not going to lie. We've had to change. We've had to entirely change our lifestyle, and but that's okay. We've learned some things, right? And even a humbling is a good thing. So,
Sure.
but we do just, trust in the Father and daily. And I see a lot of the folks in the chat here that have just been so supportive. And, Chris and Liz at Take on the World TV, Take on the World conferences, Paul on the plane. I mean, so many have just been a huge blessing to us. And like you said, Robbie, you know me well. I'm not a prideful person. Of course, we all have pride, but I'm not a prideful person. But I hesitated almost to send that message out to some of my closest friends. And here's why, because I didn't want to be a burden on anybody, Sure. But we reached that point where it was like, hey, if we're going to make it through, 2019, we're going to need some help. And before I forget, Robbie, I want to throw this out there because I know, and this is natural, I don't take offense by it, right? I know there's people that are sitting there, they're watching right now, they're going, well, why didn't Nate get a job, If his family needs help, he just needs to go get a job. Hey, you know what? I agree. And here's the thing with that. For months and months and months, I have tried to get a job. I have, my wife will tell you, I have put resumes out there. I have tried to get jobs that would be commensurate with my master's level. I've tried to get bachelor's level jobs. And I shared this with you for several months before Take on the World. I had applied to probably 10 or 12 different jobs that, would fit those bills. And I only ever got one interview. And in the interview, I was told that, you'll hear back from us within a week. And I never heard back. And I even emailed the lady who at their corporate who called me on the phone and set my interview date up. And I could not even get an email back. So, at the time, here's the thing. Only the Father knows, right? But we always try to stay open to the Father. And it was very apparent to me that at least then, and if things change, I'm open. I'm still going to be looking. I'm still going to be looking for work, even with the fundraiser. I want to try to, get something even part-time, something that can help supplement. But here's the thing, for months I just couldn't. And I tried to get even a $9 an hour job somewhere. And I kind of put a fleece out there one day. I just went around town trying to get a job that anybody with a high school education could get. And everything was completely blocked. And so I thought all the doors were shut. So then it dawned on me. I'm like, okay, the Father is telling me, I don't want you working right now because it's going to cut into the flexibility in your ministry, and just trust in me. And so my wife was in agreement. We said, hey, Take on the World at the time was about a month away. We said, all right, we don't want to push things. If that's what the Father is showing us, we don't want to be pushing, right? So let's just be still and let's prepare for Take on the World. Let's share the testimony. Take on the World 19 was the 1 year mark. 1 year anniversary, just about, from when I was fired. And we had an amazing experience at Take on the World. And like you said, it was so encouraging for my kids to see me up there and to see the truth that's being shared and to see all the people that have loved and supported us. And, that was just a watershed moment. I'm so thankful for that. And, we did have an influx of folks encouraging us, and we did pick up a little bit of extra support through Patreon, which was most needed. But this last couple months, again, I've started to apply for jobs again, and it's almost like I can't buy a job. So either I'm the worst, interviewer ever, which I don't think I am, or maybe, that's just the timing hasn't been right. So I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep applying for jobs. And I have, a potential thing that I'm working on right now with a fellow brother, a fellow truther, that may develop into potentially at least some part-time work. And so I'm exploring that. I'm praying about that. And I just wanted to share that because I don't want folks to be sitting there saying, well, why hasn't Nate tried to get a job? So I want to assure people that I have been trying to make tents, but I can't even get my foot in the door for whatever reason.
It makes sense, though. It does make sense. When I look back, in 2019, though, there were a lot of stuff that, was happening with your family. And I'm sure the Father had a lot of stuff for you to really get, deep into and really study. And it was I always look at it this way. You and I have had many talks on this, Nate, but, obviously you were not supposed to get a job. Now, will you get a job in the future? Most likely you are. The whole point of this show is like to kind of get you through, the next kind of 2 months, because I do believe something is coming around the corner for sure. I do believe also that you will eventually go into full-time ministry, but I don't think it will be right away. That's just me personally. It's just my opinion. I think anyone that knows you, Nate, knows that you're giving. You definitely don't, sit there and try to, you never ask for money, and I was going to mention as well, too, anyone that another great way of helping to support Nate Wolfe is check out his book. I mean, a lot of people maybe are not aware that you came out with your first book this year, right in time for Take on the World 2019, and it's Fired for Truth, and it's absolutely an incredible book. The entire story goes into your past, and it talks really about your entire journey. I mean, really, you've got that whole year put into book format. Yeah,
it's on my website, firedfortruth.org.
I got it up right now on YouTube.
Yep, I see that. You can just click. Right. If you're a phone user, you might have to actually click. Let's see, I'm not sure. With the phone, sometimes you have to click either the link below or the picture. But on most desktops or laptops, you can just click that picture and it brings you right to lulu.com. That's my printer, and you can select how many books you want. If you want to buy a couple and give to friends, as some have done, you can choose your own shipping. And the wonderful thing about Lulu is that they do international shipping, and it's all done just a few clicks of a button. I've had folks, in the UK, several people from the UK have purchased on Lulu, and it's just so smooth. And I've even had a young man in the Netherlands that purchased my book through Lulu, and he wrote me an email, and I didn't even know he existed. And he was sharing about how he had followed our story all year long and how some of my biblical cosmology videos on my YouTube channel had been so encouraging to him. So I tell you, that's one way you can support me. Also, I'm with Sacred Word Publishing, Zen Garcia's publishing group. So you can go to Sacred Word, and you could also order my book through them. Periodically, I do have copies of books at my home. And so if someone wants an autographed copy, they have to either see me at a conference, or I'll usually post on Facebook when I have, a stack of books come in, and then folks can just pay directly, through PayPal, and I can sign their book if they like. I can ship it out, myself. Absolutely. And it's funny because I planted some seeds with some of the postal workers in my local post office, because every couple of days I seem to go in there, 4, 5, 6 books and mailing them out. And so I've been kind of just taking my time, right? I don't want to come on too strong, but 2 or 3 of them know, oh yeah, that guy's an author. I haven't shared just yet. Yeah, exactly. I've given a few little hints, but I thought, hey, I'm going to build a rapport. And then as soon as they ask, they're going to ask me, what's your book about? Yeah. And then I'll give them a little bit more and a little bit more every time I come in. And then I'm going to start giving out my cards, that have my YouTube, my contact information, all of that. So,
well, speaking of conferences, you mentioned obviously about your book. You're going to have your book there at the Flat Earth International Conference happening in 12 days. Yes. I can't believe how quickly.
I'm so excited.
Yeah. So anyone that's listening in to the radio show, if you're going to be in Dallas, definitely come by, stop by, send some encouragement, support for, Nate, that he will be there. And this is his first year speaking, so it's very, very exciting. I wanted to mention also that, I'm going to keep coming back to this, but really, if you actually stop and think about, the Father's will in your life, you have to understand the significance that you're the first mainstream pastor in a larger denomination that actually got fired and that kept going, speaking the truth when it came to enclosed cosmology, when it came to the literal interpretation of the Bible. So I'm going to stress that, because I don't think people really understand the significance of, Pastor Nate Wolfe. When you understand historically, you are the first, to come out. So I'm saying your story is pretty significant. The Father has big things in store for you. There's no doubt. And that doesn't negate the fact that, you need help along the way. And really, he helps through his people. And that helps, tremendously when we know that, because again, we see that, I'm sure through your life, you've seen it. Obviously, he answers prayers, but a lot of times those prayers are answered through his people.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. As you're well aware, there are ministers that have been fired for, speaking out on this truth, but they once they got fired, they just kind of disappeared, and I get it. There's fear. There's how am I going to provide for my family? If I speak out, then I can't get another job at a church. And I just, for me personally, and, with my wife's, input, we decided that, we didn't feel like I needed to be doing that same work. I needed to have more freedom, and I needed to be able to travel whenever whenever the opportunity came. And so it was more for us outside of the four walls necessarily. And so in our situation, I think it was designed by the Father. And so we have taken that route. And, we're always praying about new things as well. I've had many, many, many people say, "Hey, Nate, why don't you start a flat earth church?" And I appreciate the support, encouragement. I even, after I got fired, I had a guy up in Michigan message me, and he said, "Hey, I'll take an early retirement right now if you'll start a flat earth church."
Yeah.
And I'll give you, he told me, I'll give you 15 grand right off the bat.
Yeah.
I mean, I could have taken that,
I know.
if it was just about money. Oh, here's some support, 15 grand. But it wasn't about that for me. I said, you know what?
Sure.
I don't feel led to do that. And if I'm going to begin a congregation, it's not, the focus is not going to be flat earth. The focus is going to be Jesus Christ. It's going to be the gospel. It's going to be the Messiah. It's going to be the kingdom. However,
I've always said that you could start the first literal taking the Bible, the entire thing literally. You know what I mean? So I agree with you that when you hear like start the first flat earth church, I mean, that doesn't ring well at all. But what I've been saying over and over at different conferences, even at Taking the World, I got into a lot of conversations. I said, look, it's not about this or that. It's literally about taking the entire Bible, literally taking it for what it says. I mean, everything, even into your recent, revelations and things that your family has come to, really, wouldn't you say it's just taking the Bible literal?
Yeah. Yeah, and obviously there are some parts of the Bible that are metaphor,
sure,
and all of that. But here's the funny thing: even some of those passages, the underlying truth is still there, right? And so just like with the parable, the parable is illustrating a truth. And but as you pointed out many times before, Robbie, most of the Bible is actually literal. Most of it is an account. Yes, there are some parts that aren't. There are different genres, that are poetic. There's things in the Psalms that are poetic, but there's also, even in the Psalm, there's a lot of things that just come straight out. Psalm 19:1. I mean, it just comes right out and say, "The heavens declare the glory." And so,
but even poetic, I always say this though. But even poetry conveys a truth. When it talks about that the sun, runs its race like a bridegroom, it's saying the sun is moving, right? So I say even poetically, it's still conveying a truth. But I hear what you're saying. I mean, Jesus clearly said, this is a parable, and then he would continue on with his parable. We know that's a parable, right? We don't have to take that literal, but it conveys truth inside that parable.
Yes. Yeah. So, I just shared that very fact. We had a biblical cosmology meetup in Seymour, Indiana, a couple weekends ago. And, I shared that fact is like, hey, is the sun a bridegroom? No, the sun is not a literal bridegroom. But what does that passage indicate? It's movement. I mean,
correct.
And so that's the thing, that's what's so important to realize, that even in some of the poetic stuff, it has a meaning. But Genesis 1, I just challenge people, people keep wanting to argue with me and say that Genesis 1 is poetic or has metaphor. And, when it says that the moon is a light, no, that just means that it's reflecting the sun's light. Well, no, the Bible clearly says in Genesis 1 that there's two great lights, right? Yeah. The sun and the moon, obviously, we would all agree that that's what it's talking about. A greater light and a lesser light. So, yes, there is a lesser light, but the lesser light is not a reflector. He didn't say, I'll create one great light and one reflector to rule the night. So I always challenge people, show me in Genesis chapter 1, any hint of any type of language that would indicate that this should be poetic or metaphor or allegory. And, some people, they just won't let go of that because it doesn't fit. Now, here's the thing. Genesis 1, the literal reading, does not fit their paradigm. That's the problem. It's not that they can't see truth there or that Genesis isn't literal truth. It's that it doesn't fit their paradigm, so they have to try to explain it. Oh, no, it's just reflection, And, man, I'll be honest with you, that bugs me because I'm trying to show people just straight up, it doesn't get any plainer than Genesis, as you know. I created this on this day for this specific purpose. And he repeats it. He repeats the purpose of the sun, moon, and stars over and over and over again. They're lights to give light on the earth, signs, seasons, days, years, the seasons, the moed, the moedim, the festivals, the feast. Correct. So it's just, you have to have a very closed mind, a very indoctrinated mind to say, no, Nate, that's not what that says, because I'm just reading it right from Genesis 1.
Sure.
So, but anyway,
all that to say, getting back to, and again, like you said, you've always been the type that you're like, look, I'm praying about it. I don't feel called to. And if I feel called to, I'm going to go with that opportunity. So I've always respected that about you, because again, when all of a sudden you could have had someone saying, hey, do this, and it might have been easier for you. You're like, well, you know what? I need to pray about this, and you've done that with your family. You've done that in the entire journey, to tell you the truth. Like, from day one, that's all I've seen from you, but again, throughout all your time and your research, and even, getting into now even your presentations, what I've seen with you online and social media is you've been there for the community. You've been there to pray with them. You've been there to encourage them. You spend a lot of time. I think we've talked about this before, but would you say that in this last year you were busier than when you were a full-time pastor at the church in ways? Like, busy.
I would say busier with actual ministry, because
Correct.
I was working 40, 50 hours a week easy with the church. And sometimes probably with different activities and church events, I was probably working like 60-hour weeks. But, a lot of that, when I really broke it down, a lot of that was more, fishbowl mentality, and most of what I have been doing almost every single day, Robbie, as you know, I take phone calls from people. I call people. I'm doing some mentoring. I'm mentoring some people right now. I'm mentoring a younger man in his marriage. I'm praying for people, not just on the social media, but I'm having actual conversations with people on various platforms: email, text message, phone calls, Facebook Messenger, you name it. And I got to say this here. I just got a very, very nice donation from somebody. I don't want to give their name, but this brother in New Zealand just sent me $500 through PayPal. Awesome. So thank you so much. We know that the Father is going to provide, and it just blows me away that people all over the world have heard about our story and have engaged with me in ministry, and it's got to be the Father. He's the one providing this. It's not my skills. It's not even my story. Yes, it's the testimony, but really the testimony is about what the Father has done.
It's his story, like basically.
Yeah, it's his story. And all we've tried to do is to be faithful where we're at with what we have. And I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not perfect. I have those times where, I'm just, frustrated, discouraged, whatever the case would be. So, but we get up and, we put one foot in front of the other, and, that's what we do. We try to do that. So,
yeah, well, like I said, you've been a huge asset to the community ever since you stepped forward and, got fired, I guess I would say. I know you were doing a little bit of stuff, with your old channel, but, when we started talking, and it's interesting, I always look back on it, and it's funny that you're the only person I did a live show with. Other than in 2015, I did 5 episodes of Flat Earth and the Bible, and I interviewed 5 different guests, but then I continued on doing documentaries and videos, but I never had anyone on. And then all of a sudden, I had you on. And this is not the radio show. This has nothing to do with the show. This was just, a spontaneous video where I interviewed you and you were able to tell your story. So, I mean, that, of course, is all done by the Father. This has all been orchestrated. It's all been put together. And, I just think it's important that people really know. I mean, people that do know you and your family and just kind of what you've put forward. I mean, they know exactly what an asset you are and just how much you've brought, to the community. It's a huge win for enclosed cosmology. You know what I mean? And all the stuff that he's enlightened you with, even getting into that, the next step and what's coming after that. But I know that you're, being prayerful and you're going to find out exactly, what that decision is and what you're going to do. And I do believe that you will be in full-time ministry of some capacity in the future. I've always looked at it like, I don't know if it was immediate, but it was almost like you needed kind of a break where you didn't have that full-time job, that you could really just, again, really study, really get into it, and just have all the time in the world to really get deep into the Word, but also encouraging, praying for people, really just showing, exactly, what God has in store through you. Again, it's His story, but it's being executed through you. And again, you're touching a lot of people. I mean, He is touching a lot of people through you. And I can say that personally because, I mean, you might have looked at me when it came to cosmology, but I've looked to you with a lot of other, areas, that I've looked into or I've been questioning and stuff. And I know that, other people do the same thing with you, where they start asking. And it's been fantastic just to be able to watch your journey, but then, excel even past where I was. So then all of a sudden I'm like, I'm intrigued about subjects and now I'm talking to you. And again, when you talk to people, not just on social media, but on the phone, I know that for sure, because you were the type of person right from day one that, any questions, any problems, you would get them on the phone. Say, I want to hear it from the horse's mouth, and we'll get to that. So let's get to more in hour 2. It's been an amazing hour. Stick with us. We'll be back right after these messages for hour 2 of Celebrate Truth Radio. I'm Robbie Davidson. We're joined with Pastor Nate Wolfe. We'll be right back.
All right. Thanks for listening while we take that short break here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And now we're going to get back to your host.
We're back. So,
we're back.
Anyways,
we're back in action. Well, they changed up some of the commercials, I noticed.
Yeah, everything's kind of a little bit different. But I was just saying, the first hour, we're going over your story and just kind of the things that have been coming up. And just this is a fundraiser. This is a time to really, if you can, help Pastor Nate Wolfe and his family. Again, things are tough, and definitely trying to get through, the next couple of months, while I guess the Father's will is revealed as far as, what's going to happen. I do believe that the doors weren't opening for all the job applications. I mean, something's going on when you're applying for, McDonald's and you're getting turned down. And I know you didn't apply for McDonald's, but I'm just using that as an analogy. So the question is, what's in store? And I know a lot of people have been asking you for different things. And really, I've always respected the fact that you've just been like, I don't feel led, or, I need to pray about that. And you've done that consistently with your wife, with your family, through the entire journey, not just with enclosed cosmology, but getting into the feast, getting into the Sabbath, all these other areas. And it's been amazing to watch, because again, you went into it and, critically, but you really just had that desire for truth. So while you got fired for truth, again, a lot of people will say you're now being hired for truth. Right. And again, that will stay true, Nate, whether you have a job or not. You will. And again, that's the question, is at what point are you going to go into full-time ministry in this entire new paradigm that basically the Father has opened up for you? It might be, in 2022. And in the meantime, you might have a job. But again, a lot of groundwork has been placed. It's been laid definitely in 2019. So maybe you can kind of comment, what you feel the Father was doing with you, obviously, in 2019, and maybe looking back on it, maybe you can kind of understand, or are you still at the point maybe where you're having a lot of problems and you don't really understand why you're struggling the way you are?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that I have made mistakes in the past of trying to force things on my own. And so that was what I was most afraid of with all of these changes, with this renewed ministry, different directions. It was from the start, Robbie, I'm going to be honest with you. From the start, my gut feeling was that he was just going to provide, and that I probably was not going to have a quote day job because it might interfere, with that flow of ministry. It's really something, Robbie, to be able to completely set my own schedule, to be able to, if I need to drive 6 hours, across 3 states tomorrow, to take advantage of a ministry opportunity, a speaking engagement, sharing truth, whatever it is, I can do that. If I need to, call and talk to someone for an hour, and pray for them and whatever else, and the time for them that works is 9 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon, most of the time I can just do that. And so looking back, I definitely see that what I tried to do, Robbie, was, even though I had that gut feeling, I didn't want to make the mistake, because I know that the heart can be deceptive. I know that we don't always have the full understanding, right? And so to prove to the Father that I was willing to do whatever he needed me to do, that's why I was applying for those jobs. And I was really working hard at it. Sometimes I would take, 30, 40 minutes just to fill out one application somewhere. I even went into places, in person, asked to see the hiring manager. And a lot of times, this is the bummer, you have a resume, you have all this stuff figured out, but they'll hand you, 3 pages on their own form, and they'll say, hey, we need you to fill this out. And so then I'm rewriting everything. Of course, I know a lot of people have been through that. They know that's a real pain, but I went through that because I wanted, to show the Father, look, if you want me to get a job, if I need to even have just a part-time job to supplement, I'm willing to do that. I just need you to show me, give me an open door. And so after so many jobs were closed, and the last 2 jobs, like I said, right before Take On the World, I kind of put a fleece out there, and I said, okay, Father, all these doors are shut. I don't understand it. I thought I was going to get a job months ago because I had a great interview. I actually had interviewed with FedEx. I was going to be delivering packages, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And I was like, this would be a great job because I love to drive. I'm good at navigation. Who doesn't like getting packages, so it would bring me great joy to be able to bring people their Amazon package. I know how much I enjoy getting packages. And I thought, I'll be autonomous. I won't have to deal with a lot of, people. So I can just kind of, drive around in my truck. And as long as I'm doing my job, man, I can listen to videos. I can talk to people on the phone as I have, in between deliveries if I need to. And it just didn't happen. I mean, it was like it was completely shut. So I said, okay, Father, maybe I'm setting my sights too high. I don't know what my problem is, but I know that I want to be open. I don't want to be closed. I don't want to be missing something if you have me to do it, something in a job-related setting. So I went to a couple of different car dealerships in town, and I literally applied I went to the Chevy dealership, then I went across the street to the Ford dealership. I didn't want to discriminate, the whole Chevy Ford, thing.
Sure.
But I talked to one hiring manager, and he said, I was just trying to get a $9 an hour job. I was going to be a shuttle driver. I was going to be a car porter, moving cars around on the lot. I didn't care. I just wanted to show the Father that if I got to humble myself to do something that's way, way below my education and what I should be getting reasonably, I'm willing to do that, because, hey, I realize this is a new life. This is a game changer. You have to be flexible. You have to just trust in the Father fully, even to do something that you would never have done before, Anyway, long story short, I even talked to the hiring manager at the Chevy place, and he said, I want you to fill this application out. I want you to turn it in to me personally. So I didn't just turn in an application like most people. I got an audience with the hiring guy, and he told me to come back and personally deliver the application, which I did. And, as soon as I handed it to him, it was like I was talking to a different person. He said, well, we really don't have anything right now. We'll keep your stuff on file. Have a great day. So I was just like, okay, that's a door shut, slammed. I went across the street. I spent 30 minutes filling out an application at this Ford dealership, and the gentleman I talked to said, well, we don't have, our hiring manager is out for the weekend, but he will call you Monday. Well, I never even got a call back. So it was at that point, about a month before Take On the World, I said, okay, Father, you've shown me. I mean, if I can't even get a $9 an hour job that almost anybody could get, and I'm not knocking anybody who's in that role, but I'm just saying I tried everything from master's level all the way down to just basic day labor kind of stuff. And it just wasn't, I felt like it wasn't going to happen, and I didn't want to be forcing it. So that's when we made that adjustment. Now I've applied, this last month, I applied for a couple of more jobs. And again, I have not even gotten an email back. So, it just got to this point this week where we were like, wow, we need some help. I mean, we just have to ask for some help, because my wife is working full time already. There's not more that she could do. She could work more, and she could just end up, burning out. And I don't want my wife to do that.
Sure.
So to answer your question, if something were to shift, I'm still going to keep that open if that's his plan. But I have a feeling that, as you said, and as 19 comes to a close, I know that FEIC in Dallas is going to be a great opportunity to get to know more people, for people to get to know me and my ministry. And I just have a feeling that there will be others who will partner with us. And moving into 2020, I am going to also be in Arkansas at the Isaiah 46:10 conference, the Declaring the End from the Beginning conference.
That's right.
And that's the end of February. So, I have some dates already booked, some opportunities to share my testimony, to share truth in various ways. And, I'm looking forward to that. And I appreciate, all of the conference folks, that have allowed me, chance to do that. And, as you know, there's non-believers, at FEIC. There's people that are more agnostic. They're not really sure where they land. And so I'm so excited to be able to share about the true creation. And as you know, I will be sharing, about getting to know the Creator. Why is that so important? Even more important, as you know. Yeah, we're 100% on the same page here. Vastly more important than even understanding the physical creation.
For sure.
The physical creation should be a stepping stone to knowing your Creator, to have that desire. So I know there's other things, like you said, there are things in 2020 that I don't even know about. And there's probably other conferences. There's probably local meetups. I'm a grassroots guy. As you know, I have done a lot of meetups all over the place within driving distance. I'll drive 5-6 hours somewhere and do a 2-day, a 1-day meetup, drive in one night, stay the night, do a meetup, drive back home the next night. I try not to take a lot of time away from family. I take as little as I need to, but I look for those opportunities. And so it is much appreciated for the support. And as I said before, we closed the first hour, we got a amazing donation from a brother in New Zealand. And I won't share his name because I don't know if that's, most people, they don't want their name. They don't want any credit. But he shared a $500, New Zealand, gift. And I don't know what that translates to in American, but I know it's at least 300 or more. So it's a huge blessing. And
that's awesome.
That's a big sacrifice for people to make. And so, but
there's people out there that honestly, God has them in place to actually help out in that way as well sometimes too. You know what I mean? Like there is, you've probably seen this with various ministries that there will be, certain people that will help out financially. And that's kind of their calling. That's what they do. I have run into people before and they're like, that's what I'm called to do. I've got money and I'm called to actually, do that type of thing. So that's really interesting. One thing I was going to mention though, Brian, Fourth Amendment in the chat was saying before he basically was kind of working on stuff and then all of a sudden he started driving for Lyft. Have you ever thought of Uber or Lyft?
Yeah,
you love driving so much.
I actually have thought about that, and I've even looked into. I was looking into like there's this new one called Shipped, where you can go shopping for things and you can deliver that. I've looked into a lot of them. I looked into the Amazon Flex, which is like a wing of Amazon where you can actually drive your personal vehicle and choose your hours. And unfortunately, in my area, you would think that where I'm at in Toledo, like all of these would be available. I know that Uber and Lyft are available, but like some of these other ones I looked into, they're just not available yet, and they don't have the facility. They are building a large Amazon facility, is my understanding. in the Toledo area sometime
Oh,
within the next several months.
Okay.
But right now, I heard about that Amazon Flex, and I was like, that'd be perfect. I could drive my own vehicle.
Yeah.
My only issue as well is that we have 4 kids, and we've had 2 vehicles for the same vehicles for several years. Our vehicles are, they're worn out, and so I'm a little cautious of doing too much driving in my personal vehicle because if either of those cars blow up on me, I can't do meetups. I can't take my family where they need to be. So that's the main reason why I haven't done something like an Uber, just because both of our cars are high mileage as it is. But it's an excellent idea, and I know for some people that's the perfect interim job for them.
Sure.
And you and I, we've had some great Uber experiences together.
Yeah, we have, haven't we? That's hilarious.
Most of the Uber people that we we ran into were just really great folks.
Yeah, we get out of the Uber and they're already like demanding that NASA be audited.
Yeah, that one guy in Southern Cal, man.
They should audit NASA. I'm like, yeah, exactly. We just were going with him pretty good.
It didn't take us very long to get that guy asking some real serious questions out loud. Like,
that's the thing. It really doesn't. When you start bringing these things up, you just be surprised what kind of conversations you can get into, right? When you just start bringing stuff up subtly. We didn't get in and then start saying the Earth was flat. We just started kind of questioning, like, wait a minute, what's going on here? With NASA. I always use that. How
we started was, 56 million a day. And the guy was like, you could see he was, he paused for a few seconds and he's like, we need to audit NASA. I was just like, I was rolling in the back seat. I was just like, man, Robbie,
I know
you got them thinking. That's what we need to do, is just get more people thinking for themselves. Yeah. But yeah, that's just it's hilarious. But yeah, there's other things, and I know I saw Chris Bailey in the chat earlier.
Oh yeah, I was talking to him earlier too. We got talking about you as well too, right? But he's got
we still have some things potentially, another new ministry that I know it'll get started. I honestly haven't had the time to do it the last month or two, and heading we'll take on the world and then heading to FEIC, but I would like to sometime soon. I kind of have that feeling like I will be ready soon. Maybe the end of this year, maybe at the beginning of 2020, is to start a series called Journey to Truth, which would hopefully be a weekly series. It'll be some type of a teaching portion that I will do, not necessarily related to flat Earth. It could be something completely different. But where I would share either on my channel or maybe take on the World TV. I might even just decide, depending on, after praying about it, I may just decide to tell Chris, hey, can we do this on Take on the World TV? Or it may be on Fired for Truth. We'll just have to cross that bridge. Yeah. But, here's why I've hesitated, because I have been so busy doing ministry. I had to be careful to not add too many things too fast, right?
Sure.
I had certain key things that I wanted to make sure that I was able to put my full energy and attention into. And the thing is that I'm not the type of person that likes to fly by the seat of my pants. I can, but it's not my preference. I like to be prepared. I'm organized. So as best I can, I try to do that. Yeah. And so I didn't want to just slap something together and say, oh, I'm starting this new deal. Sure. I want to make sure that whenever I start that, I have the time to weekly, invest into study. And that way, whenever I bring a subject, I'm not saying I have all the answers or I've handled it perfectly or fully, completely, but I want to make sure that the message is brought forth, in a way that shows a good study of the scriptures, that gives people some, important things to think about. And maybe it's going to be a different focus, obviously, than, say, Life Matters with Nate and Jen, but hopefully it will do similar things to the listener. And that is, it'll challenge them, it'll encourage them, it will give them ways that they can stretch and grow in their faith and their biblical understanding. in their application of the Bible in their own lives.
Yeah.
So I haven't forgot Chris. I have been actually thinking about it more than you know. And even my wife has bugged me about it a few times. And so I'll definitely be talking with Chris Bailey soon.
Well,
and
good.
Especially, I mean, this is an inside thing, but especially if Chris will throw in a few extra homemade limeades, then I might be willing to, work something out
I'm sure he could accommodate that. I'm sure he'd
get a start date. But it's really funny because Chris and Liz are plant-based eaters, and I'm a meat eater, although I eat plants too, and I've cut back on some of the meat I'm eating. But we were at their house. I was at their house several weeks ago because of a deal in Cleveland, and for the Feast of Trumpets, and they were bringing out some amazing stuff. And they're like, "Hey, this is made out of chickpeas. This is made out of this. This is made out of that." And it was just amazing food, and it tasted a lot like some of the, the chicken salad, only with no chicken, but it tasted like chicken salad. I'm like, what is going on?
I could just see them too. They're like, "Hey, this is made of chickpeas. This is I could just see a big smile, like Chris with that big smile, like grin he has.
Oh yeah, and Chris was making these homemade limeades. And it was just amazing. So anyway, we'll work it out. And cool. I'm praying about it too, because I want the time.
Well, that's the main thing. I mean, really, honestly, that's the main thing. Don't let anyone persuade you or pressure you or, you know what I mean? Influence you. Obviously if it's the Father's will, that's what you want, right? I mean, that's the end of the day. But here's the one thing to consider. He might send people your way to speak to you, right?
Yes,
so that's what
does.
You know what I mean? And that's the whole thing you got to really balance, because you're like, wait a minute, I'm waiting for the Father, but the Father might be speaking through those people.
Exactly. Yes.
So yeah,
and that's a really good point. I typically subscribe definitely to the 2 or 3 witnesses principle. We see that in Scripture to confirm fact, and I think that that's a good principle to follow. If you have confirmation from 2 or 3 or more individuals that are spiritually minded, they're people that you can trust. And it's kind of like, Proverbs says that with many counselors, advisors, plans succeed. And that's been something that I have remembered for a couple of different decades. Even when I was a brand new Christian in my late teen years, that verse in Proverbs really jumped out at me, because I thought, hey, if I can put this principle into practice, and I can, seek out 2 or 3 mature, brothers in Christ or whatever that I can trust, who have, maybe more life experience than me, more experience, as a believer, then they're going to help, guide me. It's kind of like if I'm way off on something, they'll tell me, or if I'm right on track, I'm going to hear that. And that's the cool thing, Robbie. I've always called it it's just kind of a funny joke, but I've always called it my board of directors, right? So a few times a year, I would call some of these trusted men whenever, I had something in ministry I was dealing with, or a question about something, or something biblical that I had changed on. I would ask, some of these men. And most of the time, they would just they would help steer me. They would say, yes, I think you're on the right track. Or if I wasn't, here's how the Father works. I might hear from 2 or 3 different people, that's not what we're seeing. Have you thought about this over here? And that helped me, get that direction and, make that adjustment. So I would encourage everybody to consider doing that. And you really only need a handful of trusted people. Now, here's the thing. Don't pick somebody that's just going to tell you what you want to hear. You've got to pick people of character who, yes, they love you. Yes, they want to encourage you. But if you're going off the rails, they will tell you. And that's the key, because anybody can go pick, 5 or 10 yes men that just rubber stamp everything for you. That you need to do the opposite. You need to get somebody who will say, Nate, I don't think that's accurate. I think you need to look over here, or you need to consider this. So that's been very helpful. And here's a blessing, Robbie. I'm now middle-aged. I have, almost 30 years of experience in ministry. I am now reaping the benefit and the blessing of being that mentor for some of the younger men that I know. And, I used to be the young guy that needed constant mentorship. And I still have mentors, but now I can give back. I can kind of pay it forward. And it is a blessing to have enough experience to be versatile and to be able to help a lot of people in different ways. And so that's what I'm hoping for 2020. I just know that the Father will continue a lot of the things that we've been doing, that Jennifer and I have been doing, that I've been doing, but I also believe that there are some new things on the horizon, pun intended, and I don't even know what that is yet. So.
Yeah, well, as I said, sometimes that's exciting. Yeah, you can kind of look at it that way. Real quick, before I forget, maybe you can go run down all the different ways that people can support you in the ministry, your family, in the time of needs that you have right now.
Sure. So, again, when I started this out, Robbie, as you know, I was only going to do, one thing. And then you and others and even people like the folks in the chat are like, hey, you should really consider doing this. You should really, consider doing that. And so I have several different ways because I want to make it easy for people. And again, with the truthers, some people say, hey, I don't do online stuff. I don't want to do PayPal. So I have a P.O. box. They can send a money order, a check, or just even a note of encouragement. Hey, I'm praying for you. Hey, that is huge. I mean, because I know that the prayers of the righteous are effective. And so if someone says, hey, I'm praying for you, I can't support you financially, I say, amen. Thank you so much. I need an army of prayer warriors that will pray for me, pray for my family, pray over my ministry every single day, and that is worth its weight in gold. You can't even put a price on it. So the P.O. Box is P.O. Box 167256, and that's in Oregon, Ohio. Oregon is spelled like the state of Oregon, but us Midwesterners say Oregon. Ohio is OH 43616, 43616. Also, the fastest option is PayPal. You can go to paypal.me/Nate Wolfe, and you can just do an instant payment. And if you have the ability, even just with a small amount every month, if you have the ability to make a monthly commitment, and even if you say, hey, I can afford $10 a month, I'll just give up a couple cheeseburgers or whatever a month. I will, sign up for as a patron of your ministry. You can go to patreon.com/Nate Wolfe. Again, it's very similar. And you can pledge however, there's different levels there that are preset, but you can pledge whatever you want. And, I give updates on there every month. Sometimes I share, as you do, Robbie, sometimes I share things that are special for the patrons that they will get before YouTube or other platforms. And so those are several ways that people can support us. Also, you've been showing, screenshots there of my website. My website is a very important place for people to go to because on the website, they can do almost all of these things. On the website, there's a button if you want to sign up as my patron. There is a donate now button, which is linked directly, to my PayPal. There's a contact me option, which will push right to my email, which is nate@firedfortruth.org. And so I get these push emails directly from my website. You can also click on my Teespring shop. I do have some merchandise there. Again, I waited months and months to do the merchandise because I just didn't want to do that, but people were bugging me. They're like, man, I would love to support you, but I'd love to wear a t-shirt, that said Fired for Truth or, John 8:32 or something that I can wear around, to show my support. So I've got some t-shirts, some hoodies. I'm drinking right now out of a mug that I created that has the Fired for Truth logo on one side and John 8:32 on the other. And then I also have a link to my book where you can just go directly to lulu.com. You can purchase my book. Obviously, I get some proceeds for every book that is sold. And so every month, lulu.com, how that works is every month they will send me a lump sum, whatever that is. If I've sold, $20 worth of, I've sold $100 worth, it'll just go right into my PayPal. And so I can track the progress on that and have an expectation of, okay, here's how much is coming from this stream of income. Here's how much is coming from Patreon. And so, those are the multiple ways that you can either support me find
and
out.
feel
about
free
what's
also
going
with
on.
you also on social media. I was going to
Yep.
mention, make sure that if you are on Facebook, Nate Wolfe Fired for Truth, just look up
Yeah.
Nate Wolfe Fired for Truth. Connect with him that way. He is on social media. He's on Instagram, Twitter. He's got all those, and you can find them at his website, firedfortruth.org.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I've
like
got
you
the
mentioned before,
social
go there. It's
buttons
kind of a
there.
hub.
Yep, I got
Yeah.
the social buttons. You can click on either Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube. And Robbie, I have 2,200 and something friends, but I haven't even touched the 5,000 friend limit like some of you guys have. So,
Oh yeah.
I mean, I'm me, I'm pretty
I'm
active.
actually like I mean, people that I know in that 5,000 are like,
Yeah.
40, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
so
yeah,
it really, it's sometimes it's one of those things. It's almost like,
It can
followers
be
or
hard
fans
to manage,
yeah,
even
yeah,
at 2,000. But I tell you this, one of the ways I really like Facebook is because I do use Messenger. A lot of people don't. And
Yeah.
I know you have to weed through stuff because you get a lot of bogus messages. You get a lot
Sure.
of stuff that's spam. Some people get hacked. You have to be really careful what you click on. But
That's true.
here's why I like Messenger, because so many people use Facebook and so many people use Messenger. It is like, in some ways, it's the fastest way that someone could send me a message. I will see the message, and if they're my Facebook friend, I will do everything I can to try to return a message to them, either immediately or within 24 hours. I try to do that, and it's just one of those ways for me to connect. And as long as I can do that, I will. I can't imagine guys like yourself, Skiba. I know you guys try. And I know that right now I don't have as many followers and supporters as you guys have. And so I'm able to do some stuff that huge channels can't. But I know that day's coming as my channel gets bigger and bigger. I'll have to manage my time differently. But I've always seen myself, Robbie, as just a guy. I'm just an average guy. I'm trying to serve the Father. I'm trying to love on people. He's given me a heart for people. And so every chance I get to interact with the soul, I'm going to take that opportunity, as best I can.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, that's all you can do. I was going to make sure before, we get to the end of the program, we still got like another half hour for sure. But maybe you could kind of let people know of the $5,000 goal or the fundraiser, kind of that kind of figure. Maybe you can mention where you're at, just so people kind of are aware, where you're at or how close you are.
Yeah. So, we actually started out kind of in the hole 2 days ago with this huge unexpected bill that came in. It was like $1,900. I want to report to you that within the last 36 hours, another donation came in before the show, and it was from a brother that I really appreciate. He's been a big supporter, and with that donation, we got to $1,900, which put us even with what we lost a few days ago. And what we lost a few days ago was what kind of put us in that tailspin, emotionally. So we got back to zero, to where, okay, we have the funds now reimbursed for that. And we can use that to pay the immediate bills that it was intended for. Then, we're looking at, to get us through the end of 2019, we decided, we think that to do 5,000 would be enough to help us with mortgage and other expenses. And just 20 minutes or so ago, 30 minutes ago, right before the break, I got it was $300 translated to American. So I've got $300 already towards the 5,000, and then there was another 50 before, so that's $350. So I've already got $350 towards the 5,000. The 1,900 brought us back to basically like that bombshell never happened. So we're so thankful for that.
Yeah.
Because like I said, that money was already spent. It was going towards bills that we would pay within the next 2 to 3 days. And so now we don't have to worry about that. We can use that money to pay those bills. And then the 5,000 that we're hoping to raise is going to be for the next 60 days or so plus into 2020. Mm-hmm. So anything that folks can do, and I know some folks, they are strapped, some people might even be in a worse situation than me. And if that's the case, I say, we covet your prayers, and I don't like to say if all you can do is pray, because prayer is powerful. So I say if you can't support financially and you can pray, then thank you so much. I mean, hallelujah. If we have hundreds and hundreds of people praying to the Father on our behalf, guess what? Anything we need is going to be provided. Yeah. And so that's worth more than any type of riches or funds or anything.
I'm sure other, hosts probably will, either have you on or they're going to mirror this video. Right. And, we've gone through this just, a few minutes ago, but there's multiple ways. So, like you're saying, with anyone that's listening, really try to see if you can help. Anything really does help. There's so many different ways. Like I said, buy a shirt. Right. Yeah. Buy a mug, that will help. Right. Nate Wolfe's, first book that he ever came out with, and it really chronicles his entire history, but even into the story. Yeah. I mean, he got fired for going to a conference talking about flat earth. Historically speaking, Nate is the only one that has come forward. That to me is very, very significant here, and he's basically been going this entire year living, incredibly, extreme means as far as just kind of getting it by. And he's still being faithful. Like I said before, he's and I know because obviously, becoming a good friend also as a co-host, we talk a lot and knowing kind of the financial situation that he's in, and yet he's donating to other YouTubers and other ministries, you can clearly see it if you start looking around. So, I mean, he really has a strong heart. And I think it's time for people to really just step up and try to help you in any way, because I do believe that just shortly into 2020, you'll either get a job, you'll find some ministry opportunities, something will happen. But 2019 is significant, and it's going to be really rough for you and your family over the next 2 months, and that's really what we're doing here is we're talking about, 5,000. It might seem like a lot of money. And you'd be like, well, I don't have a lot. Well, if a lot of people even just throw in like $20, $10, $50, it all adds up. It really does. Right. And I know that, a lot of people that hear this, Nate, and understand the situation, it gets around to as many people as possible. I think you're going to be surprised exactly the outpouring, because again, you have done so much in the community. You've been a huge asset. And I believe the Father's had you here for a very specific reason, but it's really enriched, many people's lives. He's done an incredible amount of ministry through you. You brought great insight and teaching, and you continue to do so, right? Into 2020 with everything that, he has in store for you. So like I'm saying, try your best. Like I said, you can go to firedfortruth.org. You could contact him if you want to talk to him personally. You could reach out to him through social media. You want to donate, you can do it to paypal.me/Nate Wolfe. There's many, many ways, and said anything will help. Because like I said, you're getting into November, December, and, it's rough, and it's rough when you have, 4 children and, and obviously as a man, you're looking at I gotta, I want to support my family, right? Yes. I want to be a provider. And, that's kind of tough when you're trying to follow the Father. You're trying to follow the Father's will. But also you're kind of conflicted because you're like, but I need to support them. I need to bring that in. So that must be, really difficult. It's hard.
Yeah. And that's why I kept it open and was pursuing the job. And it also, that's why it hurt so much when I couldn't buy a job, And so, the fleshly side, the man side of you says, man, you got to do this, but yet I just couldn't get a job. And, at the same time, I knew, though, that if the Father was closing those doors, it was for a good reason. And I just needed to swallow my pride on that and just be still and know. And I'll be honest with you, this 2 days ago, it was really rough. We were having a tough time, and we just hit a wall. I'm just going to be real transparent. That bill, it was, we're like, oh my goodness, we got to pay this bill now. If we don't, there's going to be, it's going to be more difficult to take care of this. And we just were like, okay, Father, we have no way. We scraped every penny we had to make sure that when this automatic check thing came out, that it cleared, right? And it cleared. And I want to tell you something. This was a God thing, okay? Most of you guys know this, at least the banks in my area. When you go to deposit a check, this is how my bank works. You get $100 of that deposit credited to your account. The next day, you get the balance, whatever that balance is. This is how God works, okay? I'm not saying he's the God of the last minute, but I think sometimes he waits to the last minute because he wants you to rely completely on him. Sure. And he wants you to rejoice when at the last minute, he makes it happen. And this is exactly what happened. We didn't even think we were going to have the money to pay this bill. My wife's direct deposit was coming in the same night that this check was supposed to come out of our account. And we didn't know which one was going to come first. But I'll tell you, we didn't have enough money with my wife's paycheck this week. And she got a reimbursement for some travel expenses that came in the mail the same day. And it was a $300 check, right? So I went to the bank on Thursday afternoon, and it was Thursday afternoon, and I was trying to make sure it would deposit. I'm thinking, they're only going to give us $100. You know what? That they gave me immediate credit on that check, which is against their policy. It doesn't happen. I've been banking there for 7 years. They've never given me full credit. I've always gotten the $100, and then the next day you get the rest. That was a God thing. He pushed that check through, because without that check, we would not have been able to clear that payment. And so, that was an encouragement. But we're sitting there with $27 in our account, and we're going, we've got $1,500 worth of bills we're supposed to pay in the next few days. How are we going to do this? Yeah. It was Friday morning. We got on our knees. We prayed. We were both crying because we just kind of hit a wall. It was like, Father, we trust in you, but we need some help. Like we got to get some help today because we cannot do this. We can't do this anymore. We got to have some help. And, within an hour of that, the Father just put it on my heart. He's like, you know what? I know you don't want to share your need, but you need to share this. You need to go to the people who love and support you, and you need to swallow your pride. And so that's when I created that, my private Facebook messaging group. And I put about 10 or 12 folks in there that I really trust completely. And then I posted a little bit more generically on Facebook. I just posted, hey, we need your prayers. And I didn't want to say, hey, I need money, because I didn't want to be a burden to anybody. But you know how people are. They ask you, like, what's going on? What's going on? Yeah. I started getting messages. How can we help? Is this a financial need? Let us help you. And so I realized at the time that if God was going to answer my prayers, then I had to let people know what the need was, because he was going to answer the prayer through people. He was going to answer it through giving hearts. Yeah. And so once I opened up, man, I tell you what, I had several people message me. And that's why up to before the show, that's how we were able to recover that huge bill that we paid. I mean, enough people helped us that we got $1,900. And again, that's a God thing. He gave us exactly. Oh, sure. He gave us almost exactly to the dollar the amount that we had put out and we were stressing over. So, why worry? I mean, if you're trying to follow the path of righteousness, if you humble yourself and you put your faith in him, believe that you will receive it, because he will come through.
It's tough. Yeah. I mean, the human nature part of us, comes out, and it's tough. Absolutely. I mean, we can say that, we can read the verse, we can stop and think about how crazy it is that we even worry when, look what he does for the lilies and look what he does for the birds. He feeds the birds. We know the verse, but again, when you get into real life, it's tough to act out and to do that. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but, even, the person that has the most faith, I think at times there's like, really? Like what? What is going on? Like it's getting intense, right? So, but like I said, when was it when you were fired? That would have been August of last year, correct? 2018?
That was, we went to Take on the World August 24th through the 26th of 18. Yeah. I was fired September 14th. It was a Friday. So it was about 3 weeks later. That's right. It was so fast. And that's the thing is my wife and I, because I had been talking to Chad Taylor and a few others, and my wife and I had decided we're just going to pray for 40 days. I mean, I don't know why we picked that number, but we just were like, look, this isn't going to be a pray for a couple days thing. We needed to show the Father that we were serious about doing his will, humbling ourselves, and not taking any action until we hit 40 days. Yeah. And it didn't take 40 days. I mean, at 21 days, and here's the thing, it's kind of cool because, there's the story in the book of Daniel where Daniel is praying and he's fasting, and Gabriel, the angel, comes to him and he says, hey man, I'm paraphrasing. He says, hey man, I'm really sorry. I would have been here sooner, but I was hindered by the Prince of Persia. There was a spiritual battle. Well, it's just kind of interesting because in that story, it was 21 days from when Daniel started praying when his prayer was answered. Now, here's the strange thing, Robbie. Our prayer was answered in 21 days. It was not. Now, here's the difference. It was not what we expected. It didn't go down how we thought. It was a rip the Band-Aid off, complete severance, immediate. And it was traumatic, but I believe that he answered our prayer. He did it in the right timing. And as traumatic as that was, that's what needed to happen. He needed me to be completely free at that moment to say, okay, Father, this is scary, but I know you're in control. And, here's what we're going to do. And I can't imagine that a year has gone by. I mean, it seems like just yesterday when Rick Hummer is texting me your contact and he's texting me Skiba's contact and others. And he's like, hey, these guys want to talk to you. They want to encourage you, give them a call as soon as you're free. Yeah. And I'm just sitting there and I'm just like, why did these guys want to talk to me? Like, I'm just a guy, And then you guys were breaking the news to me that, hey, you don't understand. This is a huge development, in flat earth. And you're the first pastor. You're not the first pastor by any means who's been fired.
But you're the first to come out. Yeah. But
you're the first to just say, okay, let's do this. Let's share this truth. I don't care. So, I got fired. So what?
Yep. We'll go public. I mean, nobody else, prior ever went public. They never used their name. They never attached it, whether it would be ridicule, laughing. It didn't matter. They kind of went away quietly. You, on the other hand, said, no, I'm putting my name out there. I'm going to keep preaching it. I'm going to teach it. So, no, it was incredibly significant because up until then, it had never happened. I mean, to me, I'm still blown away just at the magnitude of that. Historically speaking, I mean, it's huge, right? So obviously he has huge things planned for you. I mean, it doesn't just, choose you to be the pastor that's going to actually step out in faith, and go this direction just for the fun of it and make you stressed. And, so again, there's all part of that journey that, you're going to go through. But I always like to say that to people so they really understand, who we're talking about when we talk about Nate Wolfe. Especially when we're talking about enclosed cosmology or flat earth. It's incredibly significant because, like I said, years prior, I was getting emails from certain people in ministry and stuff, and they were just like, well, this sucks, and they were kind of going off. They didn't want to go public. I'm like, you need to go public. You need to go public. No. And then when you came along, it's like, you're going public. So it was very significant. And I think a lot of people,
it was like two or 3 days later, I was already doing interview with Chad Taylor, with you, with others. And so it just was a blitz, it was so fast. And here's the thing. I just wanted to follow the Father's will. I just wanted to share. I didn't want to just be taking in truth from different sources and YouTube and study. I realized that, look, okay, it's been over a year. What are you going to do? What are you going to do to share truth? And so I never could have imagined this would have happened in my wildest dreams. I never could have orchestrated this. I mean, this was totally the Father doing these things. All I did right, Robbie, I'm not anybody special, okay? All I did right was that I cared about truth more than anything else. My wife and I humbled ourselves together as a team, and we just said, okay, Father, if you have something for us, show us. We don't know what that would look like, but we're doing that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and, I understand.
So, I mean, that was the thing is I could say, here's the reason why God could use Nate Wolfe, okay, and his wife, Jennifer, and his family, because we just try to be about doing what's right, sharing the truth boldly, do it in love, do it in a loving way, but share it boldly.
You have. I mean, it's one thing saying it. Again, people can look back basically on the last year. And they can see, not just the evidence of you doing, faithful live streams every Thursday, doing the show with you and your wife, doing all the stuff that you've done in flat earth and biblical cosmology and all the stuff that you're doing, with Torah and all these things. The amazing thing, though, through the whole journey, though, Nate, was you never, ever were asking for money. Even though things were really tough and you guys were going through a really bad time, and it's even got worse, obviously. And then obviously, those prayers have been answered. But again, just knowing if people understood exactly how stressful and just how tight it's been for you and your family, stepping on the faith, basically saying, okay, I'm going to go forward. And you didn't just give up. You didn't just go away. You kept moving forward. And you're like, look, I don't know, but I feel this is the calling for my life. And you've done that faithfully. So, not only the fact that you're the first pastor to come out, after being fired. I mean, you're the only pastor that was fired from a mainstream denomination and come out and put your name to it. And here's another thing, Nate.
Yes.
You had every opportunity to be vindictive or just be a little upset or whatever. You never mentioned the church. You never mentioned the names. And again, I think that character people see that. They see that you really are the real deal. There's no doubt about it. And that's the amazing thing that I think people need to understand, especially when you're going through all of these things and what you brought to the community. So, I mean, it's not just because you're my co-host and you're a great friend, but I've just seen nothing but just fruit, constantly, not just with you, with your wife and your children, your entire family,
that's the thing is, he knew he knew exactly what I was going to need in a wife and kids. I mean, that's the thing. I recognize I am super blessed. I mean, there are so many people that are like, Nate, my wife is not on the same page with me. My husband's not on the same page. My kids all think I'm crazy. We have stress in our family. Like we just can't, be on the same page. And I am really blessed in that. And so I'm thankful. And I realize that that's the only way that this is even possible, is that the Father has blessed me with an amazingly supportive wife. And, she'll be the first to tell you, it ain't been easy. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I mean, we've both had days where we just, we're in tears, not sure how are we going to make it through the day? How can we just get through, some of the spiritual attacks and some of the personal attacks that people have made and people slandering us. And, that's the thing, as you mentioned, I didn't share the name or address of the church. I never even shared the first name of any of the people from the church, because here's the thing. For me, it wasn't personal in the sense that, this is a battle against me and this person. No, it was the principle of truth. And I did share very, very, minute details about how I was mistreated, how the leadership didn't follow scripture, didn't handle me as a brother. And the reason why I did that was because these things need to be exposed. I mean, there are there's many good churches out there. You know this, Robbie, and I would still say that today. There are many good churches. There are many good leaderships within those churches. And, the thing is that you really have to look at this as a teaching opportunity, right? I don't know, maybe some leaderships, maybe some churches heard about my story, and if they have a similar situation where there's people in their congregation that are talking about biblical cosmology, maybe they'll engage with them in a loving way and say, you know what, we don't want to cause division. That may be a crazy idea, strange in our mind, but if we're just if people are just asking to sit down with us and study the Bible, why was that a bad thing? Let's sharpen one another. Let's test all things. Let's prove all things. Sure. And if somebody's teaching something that is patently false, then hey, that needs to be addressed. But I just felt like, for whatever reason, this was going to be a learning experience for myself, for the church, for people following the story, and I didn't want to do anything intentionally I mean, I'll be honest with you, I could have caused a lot of damage, if sure. I could have shared some details and people's names and addresses, but you know what? I thought that's not going to help anybody learn. It's just going to be, it's going to be, Montel or, Jerry Springer. People don't need to see that. That's not going to honor the Father. That's not going to, help people to change and examine their behavior. So,
you've been a real example. I mean, through the whole thing, being fired, having a good salary, and then all of a sudden just being devastated, your whole family being traumatized, losing that. I mean, you're in a town that, these people you run into, at the mall, or you run into the gas station. I mean, it must be incredibly traumatizing in the sense of just dealing with this, not just for you and your wife, but also your children, right? So all of that mixed with the fact that all of a sudden there's this huge thing happening here. You're getting into this whole idea called flat Earth, right? And then everything that's come from that as well in the conferences. So I mean, in closing, just, because we're going to be wrapping up the show here right away, I just want people to understand that, honestly, just look into Nate, what he's done. Please help him and his family out. Anything will help tremendously in this time. It's been a difficult time, and obviously just having that shock surprise happen to you a couple of days ago to the point where you're in tears. I mean, it's horrible, and it just pains me. And that's why I wanted to do a show immediately. I said, let's just do this, because I'm like, I think people need to know. And now that it's done, hopefully, you'll swallow your pride a little bit instead of donating to more people and ministries and good YouTubers, because that's what I've seen you do. And I know that you struggled, but yet you've donated to people. So I know that your heart's right. I know that the entire time you haven't been begging or asking for money. This is a point where the Father's got you too. And I think it's going to teach you, maybe even your family, all, as part of the whole grand design. And I think that you'll be blessed and rewarded for it. But now's the time not to, I'm not saying you're prideful, but you know what I mean, right? It's just say, we're hurting, please, because again, that's your church family, I mean, in a church, if you were struggling, the congregation would get together and fulfill that need. So in the same way, you have been out there pastorally, then allow people to know that you're hurting and just see what people and how they respond through prayer, financially, however they can help you, And I think that, that's going to be part of this whole thing. Maybe it was just to get you to a point where you'd be like, okay, I'm finally going to cry out for help, because until then, until now, you have not, so again, this is very significant probably for your entire journey, is getting to the point now where you're actually, and it's not that you're crying out, you had a very private amount of people that you started talking to. And then from there, people are starting to initiate things like myself doing the show and saying, let's do this show. And any way we can get you and your family help financially, it goes a long way, because I think that you've got huge things in store. I'm excited for you to present at Flat Earth International Conference in 12 days. Absolutely. It's going to be a fantastic presentation. I think there's going to be a lot of blessings that will come from the conference, a lot of new people that are going to get, basically introduced to your ministry and kind of what God is doing through you, and just the take you have on this whole incredible thing in closed cosmology, but also the journey that has, progressed since then. So I'm excited.
Well, thank you so much for doing this. And, based on several people earlier that were saying, hey, you need to crowdfund this, I'll support that. I will definitely do that, and I'll let you know, and I'll get the word out on that. And I know people will do, whatever they can, whatever is within their ability to do so. And that's the thing is, I'm certainly not asking anybody to put themselves in jeopardy. But like you said, the reason why, even recently we've given some small amounts to help some very specific things. There was a widow that was in need that we're like, hey, if we can't help a widow out, what good are we? Where's our faith? And so, we tend to give, smaller donations to help a lot of various ministries, because we recognize that that's how you have a successful fundraisers. You have, you're going to have a couple people that can give larger amounts, but really what pushes those fundraisers to success and helping the people in need is tens and hundreds of people who give $10, who give $20, and it's everybody chipping in, and that way nobody's strapped. Nobody's putting themselves into debt to do good work, but the good work takes place. It brings glory to the Father, and people are helped. So Amen. we will always try to do everything we can to help others, even in the midst of our need.
Fired for Truth. We're wrapping up the show here, so I want to make sure we get this in. Fired for Truth on YouTube. Check out paypal.me/Nate Wolfe. Go to firedfortruth.org, and you'll find all the links that you can help. There's Patreon. You could purchase this book, get a mug or a shirt. Anything helps. And again, I think this is time, and I think that the Father led you right to this point, and I think that he's going to show you some beautiful things that will come through his people that hear that someone is in need, and someone that's doing incredible work, not just in this community, but in many. And I think it's an amazing time. So I'm excited for the future. Can't wait to see you in 12 days.
It's going to be awesome.
FEIC. It's going to be amazing. So, and again, in the meantime, I think there's going to be a lot of answer to prayers and a lot of blessings coming your way. And get it out there. Start the GoFundMe. Do all these sort of things. People will share it. Again, pray for Nate and his family, and good things are coming for
Thank you guys so much
in the future. So thank you so much to Celebrate Truth episode 45. It was a special edition. Fired for Truth. Please help Pastor Nate and his family. And we'll see you next week on Revolution Radio. Good night, everyone. Take
God
care.
bless.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Don't miss Celebrate Truth with Robbie Davidson and Pastor Nate every Saturday, 7 to 9 Pacific, 10 to midnight Eastern on Revolution Radio. They talk the Bible and how it exposes a lot of lies in the world with special guests, roundtable discussions, and call-ins from you, the listeners. This is not your typical Christian radio show. Celebrate Truth with Robbie Davidson and Pastor Nate every Saturday from 7 till 9 p.m. Pacific, 10 midnight Eastern on Revolution Radio.